Story 1, Catch Me If You Can. Years ago, back in the summer of 2009, in a quiet suburb 20 minutes south of Columbus, Ohio, nights still belonged to kids on bikes. We barely had flip phones that took 30 seconds to send one blurry photo. When the streetlights flickered on, that was the signal. We had maybe another hour before parents started yelling our names across the lawns. At the very end of Hickory Lane stood a little square everyone called Maple Grove, even though there wasn't a single maple tree. It had a baseball diamond, a couple of benches, and a big wooden play structure surrounded on three sides by thick pine woods that swallowed every sound. The fourth side opened onto an old service road nobody used after dark. No houses faced it, no windows. Just the constant low drone of cicadas and the smell of hot pine needles releasing their scent when the night air cooled. I was 13, all sunburned shoulders and scabbed knees. My best friends that summer were Nick and Dylan. That Friday, we'd spent the whole day riding everywhere. To the creek behind the middle school, to 7-Eleven for blue slushies, and finally to Giovanni's Pizzeria, where we demolished a large pepperoni sitting on the curb while the neon sign buzzed overhead like a dying bug. By 10:30, we were in Nick's backyard, jumping off his trampoline and screaming wrestling catchphrases until his mom came out in her robe and told us to shut up or get lost. 3 of the guys went home. The 3 of us wiped pizza grease on our shirts, looked at each other, and without a word knew exactly where we were going. Night riding felt like magic. The air was cool velvet on your face. The streets were empty, and every passing headlight stretched our shadows 30 feet across someone's lawn. We coasted into Maple Grove Square, locked our bikes, and climbed straight to the highest platform of the play structure. The metal was still warm from the day. We sat with our legs dangling, the silver twisty tube slide yawning open right beside us like a snake that had swallowed the moon. For a long time, we just talked in low voices, the way you do when the night feels big enough to hide secrets. A handful of stars showed between the branches. The only light was the faint orange glow of a distant street lamp leaking through the pines. Crickets screamed in waves. Somewhere far off, a dog barked once and then stopped, like it changed its mind. Then Nick froze. "Guys, shut up! Listen!" We went dead quiet. Cicadas, wind in the needles, the soft creak of swing chains, and then something else, a soft scuff, like a sneaker on plywood, but lower, right under the platform we were sitting on. My stomach did that slow flip you get right before a roller coaster drops. "Nothing," I whispered, but my voice cracked. We waited. 10 seconds. 20. A whole minute of silence so thick it hurt your ears. Then again, heavier. Thud. Right beneath us. We jumped up. Phone flashlights shaking, sweeping every tunnel and shadow. Empty. Just warm metal and the smell of splintered wood. We tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced and nervous. We sat back down, closer together, shoulders almost touching. The darkness between the trees suddenly looked thicker, like someone had poured ink into it. Then a tiny, sweet voice floated up from inside the twisty slide. "Hello!" Every hair on my body stood up. It was a little boy, maybe 4 or 5. The kind of voice that should be asking for one more bedtime story, not drifting out of a metal tube in an empty square at 11:30 p.m. We stared at each other, mouths open. No one had climbed the ladder. No one had crossed the bridge. We would have heard. We would have seen. I swallowed hard and crept to the mouth of the slide. "Hey, little buddy, you stuck?" Clear and cheerful. "Hello!" Nick's eyes were saucers. "That is not a real kid, man. No way." I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I needed proof. Maybe I was tired of being scared. But I sat down at the top of the slide. "Hold on, I'm coming down." I pushed off. The world spun in silver darkness. 1 turn, 2, 3, and I shot out into the mulch expecting to crash into tiny light-up sneakers. Nothing. Empty. Just my own panicked breathing and the faint smell of rust. I climbed back up the outside ladder on shaky legs, shining my light the whole way. No scuff marks, no handprints, no child. We were whispering theories in a panic when the voice came again, playful and taunting. "Catch me if you can." We didn't walk. We didn't run. We sprinted. Bikes unlocked and mounted before our brains caught up, pedaling so fast the wind burned tears into our eyes. We threw the bikes in my yard and collapsed behind the fence, trying to stay quiet because my dad was asleep and he had a temper. Then came 3 soft, polite knocks on the back gate. Knock, knock, knock. A woman's voice, syrupy sweet. "Hello? Boys, were you just at Maple Grove Square?" I crawled forward and peeked through the crack. She was standing inches away, middle-aged, pale, wearing a sundress in the middle of the night, smiling the widest, emptiest smile I'd ever seen, eyes locked on that exact crack, like she knew someone would look. I fell backward onto the grass. Nick yelled, "We weren't there!" She tilted her head, still smiling. "Are you sure?" I looked again. She hadn't moved an inch. We bolted inside, locked every door, turned on every light, and spent the night in the basement until sunrise. We never went back to that square for years. Sometimes when the wind moves just right through the pines, I still hear it. A tiny voice laughing across empty playgrounds long after every real child has gone home. Story 2. The one who always stayed in the shadows. Riverside Square, Richmond, Virginia. Summer of 2019. The James River slides past the city like dark glass, and the square stretches along it for miles. Ancient oaks dripping with Spanish moss, stone dust paths, benches facing the water. The place people go to forget the day. I was 24, closing the coffee shop downtown. By the time I wiped the counters and locked up, the sun was usually gone, and the city lights were just starting to smear across the water. Those walks were the only thing that kept me sane. One August night I got off at 9:15, still buzzing on adrenaline and caffeine. The sky was the color of a healing bruise. I slipped in my earbuds, kept the volume low enough to hear crickets, and started down the main loop. The air smelled of river mud, honeysuckle, and distant barbecue smoke. Fireflies blinked between the trees like tiny green lanterns. For the first 10 minutes, everything was perfect. Then I saw him. He was sitting on one of the old wrought iron benches facing the river, hood up despite the sticky heat, hands folded in his lap like he was waiting for a bus that would never come. Something about the way he sat, too still, made my stomach tighten. I told myself I was being paranoid. People watch the river all the time. As I passed, maybe 15 feet away, his head turned, slowly, smoothly, eyes locked on me. Not curious, not threatening, just watching. Like I was a program he'd been waiting to start. I forced my pace normal, but every footstep sounded too loud on the gravel. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I was 50 yards past when I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Same rhythm, same distance. I stopped. They stopped. Dead silence except the river and my heartbeat in my ears. I started walking again, faster. The footsteps matched me perfectly, like an echo made of boots. My skin prickled so hard it hurt. I took the first narrow side trail, darker, lined with kudzu like green curtains. I thought if I looped around fast, I'd lose him. I risked a glance back. The hooded figure was no longer on the bench. He was walking the same trail, 60 feet behind, moving with a slow, gliding stride that didn't look entirely natural. I pretended to take a call, laughing too loud into dead air. No reaction. I jogged. He jogged. Same distance, same silence. My mind spun worst-case scenarios. I broke into a full sprint toward the Broad Street exit, lungs burning, legs screaming. I didn't look back until my sneakers hit sidewalk. He was standing at the very edge of the square, half hidden in the tree line, hood blending with the shadows, just watching. I ran the last 4 blocks home, hands shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. I double-bolted the door and sat on the couch with every light blazing until sunrise. Weeks later, I went back in daylight to reclaim the place. The bench was empty, but someone had carved words deep into the wood, then scratched them out. I could still read fragments. Always here. You can't see me, but I see. After that, every shadow in the neighborhood looked wrong. Twice I saw the same hooded shape across the street. Gone the second I blinked. The last time was the worst. I was jogging along the road bordering the square in broad daylight when the air went ice cold on my neck. I looked left. There he was, just inside the trees. Same height, same posture, hood up in 85-degree heat. I don't remember getting to my car. I just remember locking the doors and peeling out. I never saw him again. But some nights I still hear soft, deliberate footsteps on the gravel outside my window. They always stop the exact moment I sit up in bed. Story 3. The night the square became a hunting ground. Halloween night, 2025, Charlotte, North Carolina. Literally 2 nights ago. I still have scratches all over my arms and I still can't sleep. Me and 5 friends, all of us tall, early 20s, built like linebackers, decided to end the night at Crown Point Square. The best spot is called The Ridge, a hill where you can sit on your car hood and see the entire uptown skyline glittering like a circuit board. We were still in half-assed costumes, laughing too loud, passing around warm beers, when Jake remembered he still had a whole duffel bag of leftover 4th of July fireworks in his trunk. Lighting them on the ridge would have brought every cop in the county in 2 minutes flat. So I suggested the Loop, a huge wooded cul-de-sac buried deep inside the square, surrounded by forest so thick you can't see in or out once you're inside. We took 2 cars parked on a quiet residential street outside the boundary and started the long walk down the access road. It winds downhill between walls of loblolly pine and kudzu, so dense the moonlight barely gets through. The deeper you go, the colder it gets. City sounds disappear until all you hear is your own breathing and the occasional owl that sounds way too human. Halfway in, we notice 5 or 6 cars parked randomly around the circle. Engines cold, lights off, no people. At 11:40 p.m. on Halloween, that felt wrong, but we shrugged it off. Then we heard the low rumble of an engine behind us, a pickup truck rolling toward the Loop with no headlights. It reached the center, stopped dead, did a slow U-turn, and started creeping in our direction like it was looking for something. We ducked behind trees. The truck crawled past, windows black, then circled the entire Loop again. Our stomachs dropped. That's when Jake decided it was the perfect moment to light a 12-ball Roman candle. Whoosh! Bright red fireballs shot 70 feet into the air, lighting up the entire cul-de-sac like a war zone. Every single parked car snapped on their high beams at once, 6 sets of blinding white eyes. The truck floored it, jumped the curb, and tore across the grass straight toward us, horns screaming. We ran. Down the slope, into the woods, no trails, just briars, roots, and darkness so complete you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Branches whipped our faces, costumes ripped, shoes filled with mud. We got separated almost instantly. I was with Mason and Tyler. We dove into a ravine, slid down wet leaves, and flattened ourselves against the cold earth. Above us, we heard doors slam, male voices shouting coordinates, flashlight beams cutting through the canopy like prison searchlights. 2 men came crashing down the slope with mag lights the size of baseball bats. One swept his beam inches from our faces. Tyler whispered he saw the glint of a long blade. We lay there for what felt like hours, hearts hammering so loud I was sure they could hear us. The cold soaked through our clothes. Every snapped twig sounded like a gunshot. Eventually, the truck pulled away. The headlights vanished one by one. But we never saw those two men climb back out of the woods. When we finally crept out, scratched to hell and shaking, Jake's phone was glowing in the leaves 20 feet away like a beacon. We grabbed it and ran. Halfway to the exit, the same truck appeared again, blocking the road. High beams pointed straight into the trees like it knew exactly where we were. We dove deeper, thorns tearing skin, and somehow broke through to the far side where the woods spit us out onto Providence Road. The truck didn't follow past the square boundary. The other three had escaped earlier by just sprinting straight out. We met up hours later in a McDonald's parking lot at 3 a.m., bleeding, filthy, half convinced we were in a horror movie that hadn't ended yet. I still don't know what we walked into. Fireworks are legal here. We didn't damage anything. But the way those men hunted us, coordinated, armed, furious, felt like we'd stumbled onto something we were never meant to see. I'm never going back to the Loop. Some places belong to the night, and 2 nights ago the night decided it wanted us dead.